A very good evening to all the viewers of the Mojo Story, our independent digital platform. On the program today, cancel culture is creating all kinds of new challenges for India's biggest corporate brands. After a stop funding the hate campaign by several people online and offline, Zomato is the company that finds itself at the center of a storm. This after actor Swara Bhasker asked Zomato to withdraw advertisements from channels like Republic TV. There was a counter reaction, and the counter reaction was as follows. There were calls to boycott Zomato. Given what we've seen with the Tanishq advertisement, how Tanishq capitulated to online trolls, what does this mean for India's biggest brands? In this polarized environment, is there going to have to be a complete rethink on what is funded and how brands are positioned? To talk about this, we have three of the best minds, according to me, of India when it comes to branding, positioning, and imaging. They've been in the business for decades, and let me welcome them one by one. We're joined by Balki, our Balakrishnan, well-known filmmaker, ad filmmaker, somebody who has passionately supported the Stop Funding Hate campaign. We're also joined by Dilip Cherian, who's, of course, I think someone we all know as a brand guru and an image maker. And we had Prahlad Kakar right there with us till the internet took him away from us. So I'm sure he'll be back in a moment from now. In fact, I can see him dialing back in. But for those who don't know exactly what happened today, let us show you this one tweet. Today, one tweet is enough to actually create a storm. And this is what happened. Swara Bhasker actually went on to Twitter and said that, you know, Zomato, I'm a fan of you, I use you, but you need to stop funding channels like Republic TV and Republic Bharat. Zomato retaliated by simply saying, we do not endorse any content except our own. That's all that Zomato said. And that was enough for some reason to create such a ruckus that we have seen all day long Zomato now being trolled with right-wing supporters and people who support channels like Republic threatening in turn to boycott both Swara Bhasker and Zomato. So it's a complete mess and a complete chaos. And Dilip, I'll start by asking you how you actually read this. You know, what does this mean for Zomato? According to me, and those of us who've spent enough time online, Zomato should just ignore it, carry on with life, and not do anything about it. But that is not the environment we live in, and we have seen the Tanishq capitulation, so nobody quite knows what's going to happen next.
The answer to your question clearly is that Zomato needs to ignore this, because what the Tanishq ad controversy taught us is that these storms in this teacup last only for a day. That's one. Two, anyone who looks closer at this, at the Twitter storm that was unleashed on Zomato, will discover that these are actually Republic lovers rather than lovers of the nation. So they really represent, in some senses, flag wavers for a particular channel or a kind of channel. In this case, actually, specifically this channel more than anything else. Three, I think that the love for food triumphs everything in India over the love for cricket, the love for the country, the love for anything else. Food is the ultimate test of everything. So Zomato has a huge advantage here. Ignore it for 24 hours or 48 hours to make sure that you recognize that these are people who are only going for one particular brand, supporting one particular brand, i.e. Republic. And three, recognize that people will come back to their main theme in life, which is get better food delivered home, cheaper, faster.
So in other words, Dilip, you're saying that Zomato should just ignore this
Totally.
noise. But that is not what Tanishq chose to do. Tanishq has now, I think, withdrawn 3 of its advertisements over time.
You know, being recognized or seen as fragile and oversensitive makes you actually more likely to suffer the vagaries of victimhood than anything else. Don't forget that the Stop Hate campaign was started 4 years ago in the UK, directed at newspapers who were fomenting hate. So you are really talking about something which has matured over a period of time. It is a legitimate call, and brands can choose to ignore it, brands can choose to espouse it. But the fact that Zomato has responded with wit and humor is the way it needs to be treated. and it need not worry too much about its brand. There is no long-term brand damage that I can see at this point in time.
So, Balki, let me bring you in on this. You know, I know that you've been a vocal voice saying that brands should stop associating with hate. But the problem is that for the polarized times we live in, who's going to define the hate is what some may ask. Two, what's going to actually end up happening is that there are just a very few people like Rajiv Bajaj or Parle Ji. You know, when Rajiv Bajaj pulled his ads from 3 TV channels that are hate mongering, I said that Rajiv Bajaj and Tanishq were the difference between spine and supine. But everyone's not a Rajiv Bajaj. And the fact is that this call is not going to come from those who make ads. It's going to come from corporates, right? So maybe actually it's not ad makers or brand makers who are going to decide these decisions, but corporates, and whether corporates show a spine or not.
Yeah, I really feel, Bharka, this whole thing of, these trolls and everything else, they are like, it's not even Republic. First to answer, just to take off from what Dilip said, it's not even about Republic lovers or any channel lovers or whatever. It's kind of almost like a brigade sitting to just attack. So I really think they're neither consumers, neither do they affect brand image, neither do they affect everything. So I think it's time we realize this thing of trolling. It's almost like a separate mechanism which kind of comes into play every now and then and goes off. Actually doesn't harm anything. It just creates a lot of noise. And the second thing is, in terms of people funding hate, whichever kind of medium propagates hate. I really believe the only way to stop it is like to stop any kind of hate. Like we want to stop terrorism, you say switch off the tap. I mean, how do you stop funding terrorism? Because it's destructive to society. In the same way, I think it's no longer about supine or spine or whatever. It's about really turning the tap off anybody who's trying to, almost destroy society, almost harm minds, almost kill minds. So that's what's really happening. And I think it is about funding. Money is the only thing, because hate is a business. Hate is not some great moralistic kind of a thing. It's a business for a lot of people. When you have hate, you have a lot of people listening. Oh, it's interesting. Love is kind of, it's lovely in movies, but it's not lovely to preach any other way. But hate kind of suddenly gets a lot of things. So it's lovely business. So the moment you realize that, the only way to stop this kind of business, which is harmful, is just to turn the funding off. There is no other way.
But you make it sound so simple. You make it sound so elementary. You make it sound so commonsensical. But there are also differences.
It is not.
No, let me give you an example. For example, in the US, Uber actually put up billboards saying, if you are racist, you do not have to ride with us. They were willing to basically give up a part of their business if it came to that. I don't think it would come to that. I actually think Dilip is right, that if you wait out long enough and you just look the other way, most people go back to what they need or what they like, and they don't, shor machate hain, ek din ka shor machta hai, and it's over. But you actually had Uber making a statement. Sorry, Dilip, you wanted to add to that? Dilip?
I said, and most Americans don't even have the choice of Ola.
Yeah, that's true. That they all move to smaller groups like Lyft and so on. But my question was something else. My question was that there's a surrounding political culture that creates its own pressures. Here you can't separate the surrounding political polarization from what's happening to ads and brands and the fact that people get panicked over social media, they get bullied by it, they don't know how to ignore it.
I'll tell you what, I feel, here, we're not even talking of people here. We're really talking of one invisible army. It's called a trolling army, which has got no kind of face. People really, you don't know who it belongs to, what it's paid to do, and how it's paid to do things. I have no idea. But here we're talking of actually the media. And, the problem here is not even so much of corporates. And a lot of corporates, because I come from advertising, I know this. When you decide on a media plan, you go a lot by quantitative figures. You just go by a lot of figures. You go by a lot of certain way of media planning. A lot of people don't even know what the program is all about on which they advertise. They just look at the figures. It's time now that corporates actually look at the figures more qualitatively than quantitatively. And I think that's a step that's going to happen in a lot of organizations which are actually, socially responsible. Because there's no point in doing CSR when you're kind of destroying a lot of minds by putting your brand out in areas that in channels or media that's actually destroying people. So I feel that's going to come in very, very fast. So you can't, it's not just about corporates. It's also, I think, a very key role will be played by the people who plan media. So along with the figures, there will have to be a qualitative assessment of the program. This is what it's doing. This is the personality of this kind of channel. This is what it does. Yes, it gets high TRPs, but this is what's damaging. Do you want your brand to be on that? And
So
I
why
think a
is
lot
that
of
not happening? Why is that not happening? Or do you believe, like Dilip, that that process has begun? I think the test will be, you see, two things have happened. You have the Parle G and the Bajaj Group on the one hand, but you also have Tanishq on the other. And Tanishq comes from the very respected Tata stable. So it isn't an era-gera company, right? So I think that that made a lot of people feel that change is not going to come at the pace that some of you are hoping that it is going to come.
No, I feel, let's not talk of a couple of news channels that everybody is watching and everybody knows what the content is. This actually spreads to a lot of other programs that are actually as dangerous and as kind of ridiculous and harmful as some of these news channels are. But as far as Tanishq is concerned, see, I think it was one of those things that that wasn't really thought through. It was a decision in a little bit of panic more than anything else. I think with this kind of experience, they would, if with a little bit of thought, it would have been something different. Sometimes what happens is when there are threats to people's lives, so-called threats to people's lives, you just kind of take a decision that's way above everything else. You just say that people's safety is important. But with a bit of thought, you'll realize actually there's no harm to anybody's safety, and a bit of police protection could kind of be asked for anybody's safety. But what is more important is the bigger cause of pulling off the ad. I don't think there was enough thought. There was a little bit of panic and thing in that. So I don't think it can be used as an example of supine or no spine there. I think next time when they do something, it's not as if the Tatas are going to be chicken always in life. They've done some of the most progressive stuff in terms of advertising before, and they will continue to do so. In fact, they were the first company that actually, when you said Jagore, they actually kind of said, do politicians have qualifications to lead a country? When CEOs need qualifications to run a company, when a politician is running the biggest company, why don't they have qualifications? So I think they've asked all kinds of questions before. They've done remarriage before. So I think sometimes a situation like this, and it's happening for the first, it's all too quick, it's all too sudden, it's all happening all at one shot, you panic. But I don't think the reaction is going to be of panic always. It's going to be well thought through and it's going to be attacked correctly. I think more and more people are going to do it.
So let me get Prahlad before we lose him again. Prahlad, I mean, I think both Dilip and Balki believe that there's a kind of inflection point and that companies and brands are beginning to understand that one day of being trolled, one day of being the top trend actually means nothing. Journalists like us have had to learn that the hard way. There was a time I used to argue with my trolls, you know, and people like Dilip would tell me, Barkha, what are you doing? And today, I don't even notice them. And that's the truth. When you understand that these are just a bunch of orchestrated bullies who can't do anything to you, you learn to not confuse them for the voice of the people. The problem is that too many brands are mistaking this nonsense that goes on online for the voice of the people. But Prahlad, I know you have a slightly different take on what is trolling, what is actually the voice of the people. So given what's happening with Zomato today, what would you say?
The thing is that trolls are actually now become a kind of a paid for troll. So if you have nothing else to do, you can be paid and you can be paid to troll. So nobody really knows who's really a genuine troll and who's not. You know, so I think they should be like we have viewership panels and things like that. I think media should get together and try and figure out whether these trolls are genuine or whether they come in from a place where they are what do you call where there's an agenda. If it's an agenda, then you don't have to worry about it.
Let me ask you this. What if it does turn out that there are a number of people who actually do support Republic? Let's take this particular example, right? Swara Bhasker goes on to Prahlad, one second. Let me just ask my question. Swara Bhasker goes on to Twitter and tells Zomato, stop placing your ads on Republic. Zomato replies saying, stop endorsing hate. Zomato replies, not actually revealing whether it's going to pull its ads or not. It simply replies saying, we don't endorse any content except our own. For this results in a day-long in a day-long call to boycott Zomato, right? So basically, we don't even know. We don't actually know Zomato's position on this. We have no idea what Zomato's position is. But when you say that there should be some numbers that establish what the voice of the people are, let me push you on that. Suppose there are more people who want Zomato to advertise on Republic than not. What should Zomato do, Prahlad?
I don't think they should take a stand. I think they should just stop doing what they don't want to do. I mean, if you don't make an issue about it, I don't see how anybody is ever going to know whether you can suddenly you find a huge chunk of advertising disappearing from your books. And that is enough of a statement. Why do you need to stand up there and say, I'm going to ban Republic because it's toxic?
So what would you do? If you were advising Zomato today, Prahlad, what would you do?
What would you do? And tell them they just have to do, but don't make an issue out of it. Because you'll then, polarize the whole thing. If you want to stop advertising on Republic, please stop advertising on Republic. But that's your personal, agenda. Why do you have to make it into a public issue?
Okay, let me take this to Dilip and Balki. Balki, you wanting to come in there. See, if channels don't publicly, if brands don't publicly articulate disassociation, what happens to people like yourselves who have given calls for stop funding the hate, right? Prahlad's point of view, and it was his point of view even on Tanishq, was that discretion is better in this environment, lying low is better in this environment, but if everybody lies low and if everybody is discreet, then nobody is actually going to take a principled position on anything at all.
No, there is no point in...
Sorry, let Balki come in, Prahlad, you can respond to it. Balki, go ahead. Yeah, Balki, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, Prahlad, you wanting to complete your point? Yeah.
It's not a question of lying low. It's a question of not thumping your chest and turning around and taking a public stand, because within your own community, everybody is connected. It's a very, very small world, the business of advertising and marketing. So if you're turning around and taking a stand, you do it on your own and you let all your friends know about it and they can take a stand with you. Now, when a chunk of advertising disappears from some books, that's the end of it.
Okay, let Balki just come in on that. Balki, go ahead.
No, there is no point in kind of boycotting a channel if the world doesn't know about it. There is absolutely no point. Secondly, I just believe, see, it's not about, like you asked this very important question, how do you know that there are not many people who love a particular channel? And how do you actually suppose they all love it and actually they really love the channel? It's not about loving or hating the channel. You know, there's a fantastic kind of saying, when you have a majority of something, of anything, whether it's a government, whether it's a channel, when a lot of people like it, it's about the majority protect you are a majority so that you can take care and safeguard the rights of the minority. In this particular case, you may be liked by a lot of people. Actually, they may be actually watched by a lot of people. That doesn't mean they're right. That doesn't mean they should not be stopped. That doesn't mean we need to keep giving people who are maybe not fully aware of how things work, because a lot of people still believe in media. A lot of people believe media is the gospel truth. People believe news never lies. People believe that what they see on news is actually the truth. And in that kind of a situation, it's all across the world. And if there are a few people who know that is not the case, it is up to them to actually force people, to force the channels, force media to actually say, hey, to say, no, we can't be funny. We can't let you delude people. We can't let you do this stuff. We have to stop this because actually people believe in you. You know, the problem here is not whether people like or not. People believe. There are very few people who don't believe. So it's important for people to stop funding people so they get back on track.
So let me ask you and then Dilip and then Prahlad can respond. Prahlad has always held this view that you don't have to antagonize people with a sledgehammer. Find a different way to do it. It doesn't have to be a sledgehammer. I'm a sledgehammer type, so I am more on Balki's side that if you're going to take a position, let the world know what your position is, right, Balki? But the questions that we're getting on our live stream is Swara Bhasker going to decide the moral compass? Is Barkha going to decide the moral compass of the society? Is Kunal Kamra going to decide? Who the hell are you guys to decide? And I think that's a fair question.
No, I don't think it's anybody. It's not Swara Bhasker. It's not Kunal Kamra. It's not anybody. It's the corporate that is spending the money on a channel. Let it decide. It has got the right to spend its money however it wants. But it is up to people, really literate people who are really highly educated, people who are in very good companies, who've got great moral codes of conduct, to decide how their money is going to be spent and how their money is going to be spent, just not in promoting their brands, because today brands have a responsibility towards society a lot more than just selling their lot more than just selling. So it is up to them. It is not about anybody else. We can all ask for various things. We can all voice our opinions, but we don't dictate what has to be done. It has to be by each of those corporates who are going to spend that money, and the corporates have to kind of play that role.
Okay, so Dilip, let me ask you the same question, right? Prahlad's argument is that first ascertain who do the trolls speak for, how many people do they speak for, and in case you find that this is not a brand association that you want, just lie low. Balki says that that absolutely defeats the purpose. I have an even more complex question. Let's say 100 people want something, but it's a terrible thing to want. Let's say 100 people believe that a woman should give up her job after she gets married. But I don't believe as a brand that that is an opinion that I'm ready to endorse. It should not matter to me that 100 people believe that. Or let's take a fairness product. Let's say Fair and Lovely is a hugely successful product, but I as a brand here at Mojo, I'm not willing to take sponsorship from it, right? I think hasn't a time come when what the majority of the people feel cannot determine our choices? Not alone,
You know,
at least.
this moral hazard question is a question from time immemorial. So there are two things to focus on. One, remember that people like Balki, people like Prahlad, people like Dilip are very often in the room when a corporate takes a decision whether to put its brand in X place or Y place. It's called media planning. So very often creative people are part of that process. Certainly when there's a crisis, PR people like me are very much part of the process. So does it mean that you have to always take a stand? The short answer is sometimes denying the oxygen of money to a channel is a far swifter way of ensuring that it collapses. Second, if you want to wave the flag and do that, yes, there's a great opportunity to do that, but maybe you should not do that using your advertising, but using some other fora where you can come out and say exactly those things. Three, as far as news channels are concerned, I think that everybody now knows that paid troll armies exist. Paid troll armies exist for certain channels, paid troll armies exist for certain kinds of parties, and there are ways today of being able to sift between those who are paid trolls and those who are genuine customers expressing a
But
resentment.
what if genuine customers express a bigoted assertion? I think we need to take this conversation forward from what we are doing. Right now, we are saying, oh, these are just trolls. What if it turns out tomorrow that there is a whole bunch of people who think that Arnab Goswami is actually running a fantastic channel? I don't, you may not, but what if there is a bulk of people who do genuinely, without trolling, believe that? What does an advertiser do?
See, this is the question that people like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg are trying to figure out. They are saying that we have the money, we decide what is the view. Who are you, Mr. Millions of Nobodies? We decide what's going to be amplified, what's going to be decoupled from what is available to you. So if you believe that the number of consumer votes is something that you can figure out, then that is why you exist as a company. Now you've made a lot of money off those consumers. Now you begin to put a value laden veil over it and say, no, I will only go for such values and I will only support such things. You're fully entitled to do that because you've already got the money and you can afford to do it.
Okay.
And I think you should.
So, Balki, what would you do, for example, if you were asked to, and then I want Prahlad to respond to both of you. Very quickly, if you were asked to make a film promoting Republic, what would you do?
I wouldn't do it. Very simply, I don't believe it's about whether people like it or whether people love it. if there is something wrong, and even if a few people believe it, wrong is wrong. And change always happens from a very few people. It does not happen with the majority. Anything in life has to be begun by a few people who know it's wrong, who believe it's wrong, who know the truth. It's not about wrong or right. I don't care about the way you talk. I don't care about the way you speak. I'm not talking about personality. I'm talking about facts here. I'm talking about lies. News is supposed to be facts. You can't lie. When you lie, that is a crime. And if people don't know it's a crime, a few people have to attempt to kind of change this entire thing. Otherwise, everybody can keep quiet. It's not about 100 people like it. So who are you to say that it's wrong? I'm not saying 100 people don't like it, but 100 people are liking the wrong thing. 100 people are liking a lie. But I have the right to say it's a lie. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not asking 100 people not to keep liking the lie, but it's a lie. And I have to keep saying it's a lie. And that's all I think we can do. And we need to make that point more and more and more, whoever, whether it's Republic, whichever channel, whatever it is. And I just believe it is that which advertising can stop. It is that particular lie. It is that change, regardless of what the majority like. And I think we've had a beginning, like American elections. Whatever happens has actually given the biggest hope in the world in a very strange kind of a way. The era of hate seems to have suddenly kind of saying, hey, it can't win, because there are enough people who thought they weren't enough, but there were enough who were crying for change, and it did happen. So I think while elections and government is a very big thing, media is also media is such an important part of it, and it's so important that it needs to be outshouted. It needs to be kind of slowly, the voice needs to build. This needs to kind of stop. It can't go on.
So, Dilip, it's a complex situation because I want both of you to talk a little bit about cancel culture. What the right wing would argue is that once you, for example, say that brands should not back, let's say, a Times Now or a Republic or some other channel that let's say the Bajaj Group withdrew from 3 channels, Parle-G withdrew from 3 channels, there is the kind of cancel culture that will have a retaliation, and the retaliation will be then boycott Swara Bhasker's movies. Boycott Barkha's programs, boycott Balki's movies, right? There's no end to this. Are we entering a sort of dangerous phase of cancel culture? Are boycotts, which should have been the exception, now increasingly becoming the norm? I don't know if anything's actually boycotted, but certainly the rhetoric of boycotts.
I think that the last bit of what you said is what is relevant. People are willing to invest in the rhetoric of boycott, but will not go through the actual process of boycotts. So those who are being boycotted.
Yeah. Oops, we just lost Dilip right there. Balki, do you want to pick up on the point of cancel culture? I mean, isn't there a dilemma that it raises? Isn't there a genuine dilemma that arises from this principle of cancel culture? Because if one side is entitled to call for boycott, so is the other. Now, Dilip's assessment is based on the fact that no one actually boycotts anything.
See, I think it lasts for a day, okay, and God forbid if a movie of mine, if I say something wrong about somebody and a movie of mine comes on that particular day, maybe that one particular show will have nobody, but the next day they'll forget about it and kind of go on to something else. And I really don't think boycott means boycott. Boycott means we don't agree with you. That's all it kind of means. Okay, fine, you don't agree with me, but I will continue saying what is right. So I don't think this boycott is should be kind of taken. That word boycott is actually, synonymous with, really blank out everything that person does. It doesn't mean that at all.
No, the reason I'm asking is because, people in your industry, and I don't mean the ad industry, but more the film industry, they've been at the receiving end of what some news channels have done to them in this whole tragedy of Sushant Singh Rajput, right? And I know, because I have many friends in the industry, that I picked up the phone and I told many of them, you know what serves you right for not having a spine and speaking up? Because the thing about bullying is if you don't stand up, you're going to get bullied even more. That is the classic rule of bullying, right? But any number of PR managers of big actors, many of whom are my friends, have in the past advised the actors to keep quiet because nahi to movie ka boycott ho sakta hai. Right? So this cancel culture is something that has terrified many of our public figures for a long time.
Yeah, I think I also think, Barkha, it's all too sudden. I don't think they're going to keep quiet for too long. It just happened so fast. What happened in the last 6-7 months with all the traumas that we're all facing, with the kind of almost numbness that we're all at, there seems to be a strange kind of a kind of a withdrawal from everything under the sun. But I don't think that's going to go on for too long. This is going to, we're all intelligent people, and there are people who are already beginning to kind of speak out a lot more than what they did. I really wish they had spoken out a lot more. Yes, I wish they had just thought this through, the importance of them speaking up. And it's not for themselves, it is about the danger if they don't, and what it could cause for a lot of people. But I'm not sure that they can stay for too long without speaking up, because it's going to damage us as an industry and them as people also, in the very short run, not even in the long run.
Okay, Dilip, you're back with us. You're wanting to complete the point, and I was telling Balki that your whole response is calculated on the fact that nobody actually boycotts anything. What if they do? What if it turns out tomorrow that they do? What we're actually asking corporations to do is to be willing to lose some business.
I think corporations who have the confidence in their brands are not going to lose business. This is more just thunder and lightning with no rain. Sorry for the pun. But the fact is that this is really, there is proof for this, that nothing happens to impinge your sale. So if it does happen, corporations who take this stand will find themselves new customers who will want to support them. Second, since we started on the subject of trolls and you've segued from there very far, I understand that customers respond to products, its attributes, and to brands. And advertising reinforces that, and good advertising will ensure that you get customers irrespective of what political values you may choose to espouse or not. So I don't see Starbucks or Uber having lost any customers at all. So there is enough proof in the world that you do not actually lose. So there's no danger to corporates at all.
Okay, just I'll take last comments from both of you. I don't know where Prahlad has vanished to, but there's an interesting comment on our live stream. Tarun Kaushik says cancel culture is getting out of hand, but in case of spreading hate, if the establishment and politicians themselves promote hatred, how can you have any response but to boycott? Now, this is my point. There are many people convinced about the moral efficacy of boycotts depending on what they feel strongly about Balki. So isn't it kind of complicated?
It is complicated. It is a fight. It is not easy. It requires a lot of people standing up, but it's beginning. And I'm not even pretending that there won't be any kind of repercussions. Yes, a lot of politicians supporting a lot of boycotts, supporting a lot of wrong channels, doing a lot of things, but we have to fight it. We have to fight everything that's wrong, and that's where it goes. I mean, you need, what's the point in saying, it's the same old cliche, you need a bit of guts.
So what are you sensing, Balki, in the industry right now? Are you sensing a shift, or do you think that the fear of the online mob is eventually going to silence people again?
It is not really the fear. It's not really the fear of the online mob. It is a fear of a very kind of a different kind of mob. Nobody is afraid of the online mob. What actually people are afraid of is, I don't think they're having the confidence today, or maybe they don't know what to believe. They don't know what is, they're not really able to make up their minds whether it's right or wrong. I think a lot of people are in that situation rather than, actually coming to a black and white thing of right or wrong. A lot of people are torn between, there could be some partial right. I think it's a time where a lot of people are making up their minds, and our minds are working a little bit. And therefore, it's a shift that's happening. So it's too quick to kind of call them this or that. A lot of people are thinking for sure.
Okay, we've got to close, Dilip. Any last thoughts on Balki's very interesting point that the argument around ads and funding is really an argument around politics. And therefore, the elephant in the room is not what's happening on these television channels or who's funding them or what's happening on Twitter. The fear is not of the boycott. The fear is of many other kinds of repercussions. And there are big business houses involved. There are big business interests involved. And that is the elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room, indeed, Barkha, is that if government does not take sides, corporates can take care of consumers on either side. That's not going to be a problem. So the answer is if government stays out of the room, the corporate has nothing to be worried about. The troll armies have new objectives every day. They are like, they're in a feeding frenzy every day. They will lose interest in you, but consumers will come back to you if your brand does great advertising, which people like Balki and Prahlad do, and you don't have to worry about it. They're going to come back and buy your product. But values, as long as government does not push for a certain kind of values, corporates are immune from this kind of cancel culture or stop the hate anxiety.
Well, I just hope that people are able to understand what I think all three of you have called one day's noise. If not, we can give them some free lessons. They should come and talk to journalists. We're like the top trend almost every alternate day, usually for all the wrong reasons. Thank you, Balki, Dilip, for raising your voice. Thank you, Prahlad. We wish we had more of you on the program. Thank you to our audience. You may or may not agree. The live stream is as polarized as our politics and our television channels are, but at least we're having the conversation. And sometimes that's what counts more than anything else. Thank you very much, and see you all soon. Thank you and bye-bye.